That's enough. Right. This is a scary moment for me. I'm going to talk about a critical solution-focused practice. Maybe the word critical is not something we don't associate with solution-focused a lot. But maybe we should. And I don't know how you feel after my 15-20 minutes here. It might be. But I'm going to try and make a case for a critical solution-focused practice. And it might not go well with all of you. I'm hoping it does, because I think we already do it. And hopefully that makes a difference for our practice and the way we continue to develop our own skills and the skills we do when we work together with the people that we work with, or love and adore, like they do in Solomon. But I want to say I'm passionate about solutions focus. I mean, I've been doing solutions focused work, or practicing solutions focused work since the early 2000s, and I think maybe I was already doing it way before that. I'm an anthropologist in my profession. As an anthropologist, you're trained to look at whole systems kind of approach to people, how they engage with each other, how they practice their lives, how they go on and move forward in the world. And we're all cultural beings, and in that, there's a lot from anthropology since the 80s that has adopted a very critical approach of the way we move around and live in the world. Our way of what we think and our way of life is contested. There are different viewpoints on what's right and what's wrong, and that continues to change through history and through social environments. It's a very natural thing. Anthropologists are very aware of that, and something that I've grown up with. So I think this kind of goes along with a kind of a general development in society in general, that we need to be maybe a bit more critical about our position, our voices, what we say, and how we interact with other people. I think we do that a lot in solutions-focused work, so I'm trying to make the connections. That's all I see already there. So hopefully this works. So, welcome to this. See what happens. I'm going to talk about critical practice on 3 different levels. One is looking at your own practice. The second is how we talk and train about solution-focused practice. And the third is our place in the wider community. And I'm not just talking about this community here, the SF community that we're gathering today, but also where we work in our local communities, in our families, in our neighbourhoods, in our workplaces, but also in the global community, how we move around in the world. And as today we're connected in ways that we weren't for 20 years ago. It's very tangible that the global community is so much closer to us and available to us. I want to say, just before I start, I think solutions focus is already a political approach with a very strong ethical position. I did a kind of a research project for myself in the spring where I looked at the history of solutions focus a lot. And I was surprised to see that there was a lot of value statements very early on in the SF historical development. One of the reasons why Eve Lipchick and Insu and Steve and Marilyn LaCour and Ellen Nunley and Jim Brooks got together was that they had an acute feeling of distrust about how the society was meeting people with different disorders. They didn't believe in working long term. They had no patience for that, and they also felt that it was hurting people. And they saw themselves as very vulnerable beings that were very easy to be hurt. And they didn't want to give that experience to their clients and the people they were meeting. They were looking for a different way of working. They distinctly felt that the way of working at the time was wrong. And there's other stories along the years in the BFTC. This was not just a starting point, it was an ethical position that was very strong in their work. Steve changed his way of thinking about solutions focus not more than 3 times during his way of working. Why does he do that? What is his ethical drive that drives him to do this? Because he's so passionate about making a difference for the people that he's working with. So in there's a very strong ethical drive. There's a story I heard just the other day. Was somebody saying that as BFTC grew during the years, they changed their locales. They started in the living room of Prince Street's house, but then they moved to they got their own office space, their workspace, and then they grew and they got bigger and bigger. And there's a story I heard that Steve would say that they were looking for new locales in a larger space, in a better area. And they were working in a kind of poor area of Milwaukee, and they were looking for a place where it was better for them to work in. And the story goes that they would be looking for years, many years to find this place. But they were very tired of the deprivation in the good area, because people there weren't really on the same ethical grounds that they were at. Another story is of how INSU took the Swedish folks out from the therapy room, moving into school world and moving into certification, wanting to make this approach more available in other areas of life. It was designed as a family therapy model. I think they also were surprised how it worked well in other areas and how this also inspired them to take the solution-focused agenda into other areas of the world. And today, I don't think there's any area which is unaffected of solutions focus. So in that, there was a drive also to share and make it available, and I think that the approach can make a difference in a wide range of areas. So first, looking at our own practice. I'm sad that Nicholas is not here because Nicholas is not well, but and later on today he'll be doing something on FIT and the work that Scott Miller is doing. I think there's a lot to be learned from being critical of your own practice. And it's something also we say to our clients that we take seriously. A classical opening statement in solutions-focused work is, we will do our best, and we will also work hard. We assume our clients will also do their best, and they will also work hard. What does that mean? Well, be doing your best and working hard. For me, I think we're always stating to our clients that we want it to be better. We want to make our practice better, we want to be better at the work we do, and we're going to work hard to do that. And that maybe also implies that we will also be critically examining our work and adapting our work and striving to make it the best possible meeting that we can do with our clients. Another thing, why do we do the work we do? I was surprised this summer when I met Mark Gardner at the UK conference. He's the leader of the Zebra Collective. He started a pre-conference workshop on why do you do solutions? Mark Gardner started a workshop with why do we do solutions-focused work? Why is it important to us that we chose to work in this way? I think that's an important question, but we don't often ask in solutions. We steer away from why. We don't ask our clients why are they in this predicament, or why do they feel or think in a certain way. But maybe we should be asking ourselves that question sometimes. So I think it is we connect to that drive, the ethicalness, the reason why we do this, and also it gives us an opportunity to actually critically examine the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. We should be wary of claims of efficacy. Sometimes we say that solution focus is the best model, it's the only thing that works, it works everywhere, and for everyone. It doesn't. There are situations where we are challenged, and where we fail. And sometimes other methods work well, just as well, or even better. And claiming that we're some kind of miracle method is unethical. So where is that border somehow? Where do we find that border where we are moving into areas that we maybe making grander claims that we can actually back up? Research, there is research done on solutions focus, of course, and much more research it needs to be done. Everything is validated as it is, and there's much more research that would strengthen our position, which hasn't been done yet. So I implore you all, if you're planning on writing, do write, because we need to get that out there, critically examine, and let others critically examine us. Self-evaluation. I work a lot with self-evaluation in the work that I do with teams, and and groups of leaders, and it's inherently risky. When people evaluate themselves, they will often, be a plus would be a double plus, and a minus would be a minus in brackets. You want to avoid the bad things that are going on, but you really want to talk about the good things that are going on. And that's extra risky when you work with solutions focus, because we really like talking about the good things. Sometimes we also need to talk about what's not working well, and how could that be better, even in our own work. So it's risky, and maybe we need to reach out to each other to get help. So supervision is really important, to get other eyes on the work that we do, that we can critically examine our practice in detail. And the microanalysis work is doing wonders for us to see new levels of practice that we could be better at. FRT, I mentioned, Scott Miller's work is groundbreaking and it's hugely influential all over the world. One thing from FRT and deliberate practice is the idea of there are three things that make a good therapist a good therapist. One of those things is making use of a tool to help you evaluate your work. SRS, ORS is one tool, but there are many other tools you could use. So being very clear on an objective kind of tool that you can stick with. So you're working with some form of thermometer that gives you an idea of the conversation's success rate. The other thing is good therapists tend to network, not just with other people who think similar to them, but also people who don't think like them, and learn from them. And the third thing is that they also systematically review their work. They're systematic reflecting on the way they work, so there's a regularity or continuation about the work that they do. So this is kind of like looking at our own practice. Next one, I'm going to borrow a bit from Hazel Moon. I met her in Florence, and she introduced the first four of these. The last two are from me. And I find her fascinating, the work she's doing with me. Harry and I are very much in line with adoring the work of Hazel Moon at the moment. And I see it, she's the first.
And Hazel.
And Hazel.
Yeah, not only the work, adoring Hazel.
Oh yes, of course. Of course, Hazel's a wonderful person. Wonderful person. Hazel, she, for me, is the first person. I mean, Harry and the team of microanalysis team have done amazing work in documenting and finding all the wonderful things that we could be looking at and discovering calibration and grounding sequences and seeing the value of how presuppositions change our work. It's amazing work. But I feel Hasten is the first one who's actually looking at that work and translating it into practice. So what can we learn from this? And how can we train solutions focus from this? What are the lessons to be made? And how can we actually make a difference with it? Many are doing things in the fringes, of course, but I think she nails a few things head on in a nice way. And I'd like to invite you, if you're sitting 2 by 2 next to each other, take turns. Say, and this is an exercise for pacing. So, read from the script here and say, solution focus practice can be a formula, and scringe your face and go, get it? Go ahead. So, first one does, if you do the first one goes, solution focus can be a formula, get it? And the second one goes, it is about the preferred future. Is it? And take turns to go through. Go ahead. Is solution-focused dialogue can be a formula. They tried that in the 80s. When solution focus moved from being a kind of an experimental practice where they were trying things out, being very creative, and then they started trying to formulise it, make it, the client says A, then I go B, make it very simple. That didn't work. No, I don't think it still works. So there's something to be said about, can it be done as a formula? Do we have to go through steps to learn the practice? But I'm not saying I have a clear answer on this, but I think we should be critical. Is it about the preferred future? Well, there is some recent research, compelling research, saying that we should be careful when we're talking about preferred future, because sometimes people get worse. Is it a question-based model? I don't think so. I'm much more inspired by Alan Wade and a response-based way of working. That it's the client that's setting the tone and helping us move forward. And maybe the question is at the end of the process, or not at the beginning of the process. There's a process that started way before, that the question is only a symptom of. Maybe we don't even need questions sometimes. Most of the times we don't. So these are question-based models. I don't think so. Taking turns in dialogue. That's not what calibration says. It's much more integrated, much more complex. It's not, I do one thing, you do the next thing, I ask a question, you answer, and it goes back and forth. It's not like that. It's not a ping-pong game. It's not a tennis match. There's something else. When we speak, as we're speaking, we're getting signals from the other one that's helping us to speak. And the client is doing the same, is also playing the same language game. So when they're saying things, they'll be also listening, looking at our body language, or our facial expressions, or our gestures, or our eyes, or our tone of voice. And that will be influencing the way they're speaking. Taking turns just down to two reductions. There's so much more going on. Neutral in conversations. Can we really be neutral? We think we can be, but we're different. I'm having a conversation, you're having a conversation. We'll be expressing ourselves differently. We'll be portrayed as differently. Remember, you may be saying exactly the same thing, but the client will pick up different things. Neutrality is for me anyway, kind of there is no naivety. We're always political. We're always somehow who we are. I mean, I'm a white male, middle-aged, leading a good life. I'm meeting a young black. Poor, stuck in an abusive relationship. I'm not. There's things going on just in that, which we maybe don't take account. So being neutral is just not there. And we know in Sweden we like gender equality a lot. We are always in our gender. Our gender does affect the way we work. It's never neutral. This just doesn't make sense to me anyway. Last thing, and I know we've gone over time, hopefully we can manage. But the last thing is more our place in the wider community. We get critique from other people that we tend to be insensitive to the realities that people go through or vulnerabilities that they have outside of our therapy room, our therapy conversation. Maybe we need to be more aware of that and say, how can we meet that critique? SF, Swedish focus practice, is different in different contexts. I mean, I work within organisations and more societal change. It looks different from a therapy context. There's stuff to be learned from that. Our practice changes. And also from different vantage points. Like I said, gender will change the way we look at the work. Our experience will look at things. I think our clients can still teach us very much from their perspective on the work that we do. I find it strange that we don't have clients in the room here helping us learn more about the approach that we have. We've only got half of the room in the room. The other half is in here. What are they picking up? I hear, for instance, that service users learn Swedish focus. They want to learn Swedish focus. They learn it so much quicker than we do. It takes me, Raya Gould was saying just the other day, it takes me 20 minutes to learn Swedish focus. They pick it up because it's so naturally ready for them. Whereas we have to kind of unlearn or untrain our system to get it. I think SF is already a very progressive narrative in itself. We have a great potential to influence social movements. For instance, the difference between the Copenhagen climate talks and the Paris climate talks, one of the big differences that emerged from that, why they were successful in Paris and not in Copenhagen, was somebody had the mind to think, how can we design meetings so that everybody is heard? Because we didn't do that in Copenhagen, and people were angry. Whereas when we did it in Paris, And it was a simple idea that everybody got 5 minutes. And that made everybody a little bit more constructive. So could we contribute in some way? I think we can. I've said a lot about we can learn more from service users. And I think we do more to promote gender sensitivity too. Gender is only the first step, but there are other things that we need to take aware of, like ethnicity or age or sexual orientation. But if we can just understand gender sensitivity, that will open the door for all the other things that we maybe don't talk about enough. I think we should do. There are differences between men and women, and those we must need to take account of somehow. For instance, Jane Letham, one of the 5 people that worked very closely with Breach when they started out. I'm sure Yasmin knows her well. She wrote a brilliant book in '94 where she was posing similar questions that I'm posing now. The difference that she was noticing that men and women tend to practice solutions focus a little differently. And she was bringing the example of working with domestic violence. And she noticed that there were slight differences in the way that they worked. Women tended to have longer pauses. They were more open to talking about feelings. And these are small, slight differences. But there are things to be learned. And looking at tapes by Yvonne Dolan, for instance, she is very patient with her clients. I'm not talking about that we become political in our conversation, but we can learn from differences, subtle nuances in the work that we do, which gives us more of a gender sensitivity to the work with our clients. And finally, I just want to end with a quote because I just love it. I love, there's an American show called The Office, very mundane, boring work that we're all stuck in, and it follows over 9 seasons. And it's filmed as a documentary. In the end, they kind of watch the documentary, and in the last episode, they're interviewing the people of the show. And my favourite character, Pam, she said, I can't watch this tape. We met for 9 years, and it took me 5 years to fall in love with the person who was sitting 4 feet from me. And I wanted to scream at Pam and say, why did you move faster? And it would be great if people could just watch the show and say to themselves, be strong, trust yourself, love yourself, conquer your fears, and act fast, because life just isn't that long. So maybe we should be critical now. We should be moving forward now, because time just doesn't exist forever.